Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt. Als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen.
Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing, the Bundesliga podcast from the Football Grad Network. I'm your host, Bryce Dunn. And yes, we're back once again with another interesting and exciting podcast for you. It might be a pre-season, but we've got plenty to talk about. We've got transfers, we've got Confederations Cup, we've got everything, I think. Joining me, as always, we have Chris Williams. Chris, how's your week been?
Right, it's been okay, thanks. It's I'm off at the moment, so every day's feel a little bit like a Sunday. But I'm quite excited for tonight because we've got some real good topics, and we've managed to get quite a bit of a big guest on, so from Leipzig. So we're happy with that, and Manu's at the Confederations Cup, so everything's quite cool.
Yeah, definitely. Those guys have been busy. I'm sure you've been kept busy. I've been in a boat in Ireland for a week, so I've heard nothing about anything. So I'm sure you guys will keep me up to speed anyway. But enough about myself in the high seas. We're joined by Manuel Veth, and as you said, he's at the Confederations Cup. Manu, how's your week been?
Busy. Really, really busy. I mean, we've been chatting on and off. I'm in Moscow right now, and it's a city I quite love. I spend a lot of time in my life. I've even lived here for some time. But this has been the busiest I've ever been here. I'm literally talking 18 to 20-hour work days, and this is, of course, includes all the friends that want to meet me up here when I'm here. So I was in a traffic jam at 2 a.m. in the morning the other day, and this is a type of the year where the sun goes down at 11 and comes back up at 3. So it's really bizarre, but it's been really great. I mean, I've been enjoying all the football and all the games, and I'm off to Kazan on Tuesday. So it's been crazy busy.
But a good busy, yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of busy. I think I'm not going to be exhausted of it until I finally get back to Munich.
Yeah, I would say so, but it's good that it's been enjoyable as well for you. Obviously, Russia is somewhere that you're rather familiar with, but yes, as Chris mentioned, we do have a guest on with us this week, one that we're very excited about, and will only help clear up a few transfer speculation and debates, I suppose, later on in the podcast. We've got Daniel Berndt. Daniel's on the call, all the way from Leipzig. Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're obviously an RB Leipzig fan, but what else? What involvement do you have with the club?
Hello, everyone. I'm originally from the south of Leipzig and living here for a couple of years. And when RB Leipzig started here, in the beginning, I had no relations to that because I was living in another part of Germany. But then when they were in the 4th division, I got to know them and just heard a bit about them. And then when they got promoted to the 3rd division, I thought it was a good idea to attend some games. And I did exactly that. And since then in the 2nd division, I got a season ticket and I met a lot of new friends, and I started writing for the fan homepage, rbfans.de, and writing some articles about games and so on. And nowadays I attend the games on a regular basis, home as well as away. And also follow a lot of the stuff that goes on in social media and what the fans are talking about and what is going on in the club. Yeah.
Well, as we said, thanks very much for sparing the time to come on to the podcast this evening. And yes, we will certainly be talking plenty of RB Leipzig, and we'll all get our fill on that. There's plenty to ask you about. In fact, we were in Leipzig not that long ago with one of the podcasts. I must say, what a fabulous city. Go if you can. Okay, well, we're just going to start off today with the Confederations Cup. Obviously, Germany are at the competition, but also you are as well, Manu. We're going to talk about Joachim Löw's experimental side that he took out there. What positives and negatives have you seen from the side so far? And I suppose what else have you picked up in your time out there?
Yeah, I thought that Germany had the most convincing side of all the teams that we've seen, and which is a big surprise for me because, of course, it's a very experimental team. It's a team that's very much built for the future, and I think that was something very intelligent that Joachim Löw has done, because when you look at the way the team is built and these young players, they're all prospective players for the World Cup next year, right? And they're all battling for getting a spot at the World Cup next year. And I think if he would have gone with the normal A side, then I think they wouldn't have taken the tournament as serious as they do, because, Mats Hummels, Jerome Boateng, Toni Kroos, Mesut Özil, all these players, they don't really care about winning the Confederations Cup, but these young guys do. And Germany has been the best team at this tournament thus far. They were very good in their first game against Australia. Wobbly defense, of course, which you can expect for a team that has never played together before. Midfield was strong, attack was good goals, and then of course the second game against Chile, I thought that the squad matured. You could watch them mature on the field, because Chile is a very strong opponent, and I watched Chile today, and I've been very disappointed by them in this tournament. So I think that Germany have almost become the favorite to win this, and that's a very positive surprise. Quick one about the tournament. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun being here. And I know the stadiums are not sold out. Russia, of course, went out last night, which is a disappointment. But the tournament overall has been a lot of fun. And I think this country is ready to host the World Cup next year.
Well, that's obviously great news to hear ahead of the World Cup. How far do you see Germany going in this? Obviously, they've moved through the semi-finals now, and they will face Mexico on Thursday. Do you see them breezing past the Mexican side, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think they would be favorites, Bryce. I mean, you and I watch a lot of Mexican football, right? But Mexico were good against Portugal, but not always convincing. And I mean, yesterday Russia wasn't, despite being more talented than Russia's side, they struggled at times against Russia. Losing Salcedo for an injury, I think that's going to hurt them. And then the fact that Germany can stay in Sochi, whereas Mexico I believe they have to go down there from Kazan, that's going to be a disadvantage for them. So I think that Germany are favorites to go through to the final.
Yeah, Mexico have been behind in each of their games, but managed to come back and either get a draw or victory, and they've seen themselves through the group. It will definitely be a testing game for Germany. Daniel, if we go to you just briefly, how has the Confederations Cup been seen in Leipzig or Germany as such? Anyone excited about it there?
To be honest, not really. It's considered as a bunch of friendlies, where, like Manu said, not the A side is playing, so people care a bit about it, but really not that much. And it's just seen as some friendly games where you can see how other players doing that are not usually on the first team in the national team. So people care about it. They're happy that we advanced to the semifinals, but it's not a big deal.
Yeah, so people are happy, but not really that enthusiastic about it. I think that tends to happen quite a bit with the Confederations Cup, to be honest, when it comes up.
Yeah, that's
here.
true.
But let's move on from the Confederations Cup. If you need to get any information on it, obviously head over to Football Grad, whether it's the Twitter page or website. There's plenty of reporting from Manu and the rest of the guys. You'll get your fill there. But we're going to move to Bundesliga now, and one of the big transfers of recent weeks. Well, I say transfers. It's still stuck a little bit. It hasn't really went through. Is Anthony Modeste leaving Cologne? Chris, just to bring you into this, is this a good move for Anthony Modeste? And if so, that is, if it happens, do you see it being a good move for Cologne as well?
I think it's looking like it's going to happen, isn't it? I think he's already made his way to China, Modeste, before anything's happened. So we'll wait and see whether it does come off. But it all looks like it's going to be heading that way. Do you know what? I would have liked to have seen how he got on in the Europa League next season with Cologne. I really would have liked to have seen that. But you've got to ask himself, he's getting on a bit now, and he's a bit of a journeyman. He's been around many clubs, many leagues, and he really hit top form last year, and he scored some amazing goals and linked up really well with the guys around him. Would he be able to do that again this season when playing midweek as well? Would he be able to physically do that challenge and rise up to it again? Maybe not. So it's a massive money move for him. And when you're in the twilight of your career, which you think Modeste is, I can't argue with him in going there. I still think he's too good to go to the Chinese Super League. But it will bring in a lot of money for Cologne. And there's Cordoba, isn't there? There's Uth and there's Bobby Wood. And maybe even a low move for Gnabry, because he possibly won't be starting for Bayern consistently. So they may look to move him out for a season, half a season. Who knows? I think he might be a really good fit for FC Cologne. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's a good move for him personally, and if it can bring Cologne plenty of money, then yeah, if they spend it wisely, it could really kick them on in the Europa League.
And Chris, how much was it that he's going for again?
Well, it's reportedly 35 million, is that right?
Yeah.
I heard the same sum, and also that his salary would be 8 times higher than in Cologne, which is a huge deal.
Wow.
It's 25 million a year in China, isn't it, for him on a personal?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah. The big news, of course, today was that briefly that the Chinese club in Köln actually haven't agreed on how the sum is going to be paid. The Tianjin Quantian, I think they're called. They want to pay it in 3 tranches. So 10, 10, and 15. And Köln wants it all at once. The problem is that every transfer in China over 5.9 million. Now the team investing that kind of money in China has to now spend the same amount of money that they spend on a transfer into youth development, right? So the transfer actually will be, instead of 35 million, it will be 70 million for Tianjin. Apparently they don't quite have that money all in one go. So Köln has said, okay, well, we're stalling the talks. And the big news was that Modeste today flew to China for a medical, which was not approved by Cologne.
Yeah, I can only imagine that Cologne aren't happy about that, right?
Well, it's illegal technically. I mean, it's breach of contract. But I mean, we know what's going to happen. I think one way or another, this is negotiation. But I think that Modeste is quite adamant of going. And I mean, he's going to get 100 million euros over 4 years. It's quite difficult to hold a player back in that case.
Yeah, and it's understandable. The guy's 29. His chances to start on a regular basis for the French national teams are very low. So there's that. And he won't play for a bigger club like Bayern or a top club in England on a regular basis. So you can understand that he's going to China and taking the money with the last big contract of his career.
And I understand Köln too, because we don't know if he gets 25 goals next season.
Exactly, yeah.
And then when you look at some of the names that have been floating around, I mean, I just wrote an article on it, and John Cordoba, Mark Uth, Bobby Wood is off the list now. He just extended his contract, I believe. Gnabry has been speculated. I'm here in Russia. Pedro Smolov really wants to go to Germany. There's been, of course, links with him between Borussia Dortmund and Bayer Leverkusen. He himself has said in an interview that where there's smoke, there's fire. So we'll see. But he could be one for Köln because his transfer value is 10 million euros and he can leave for that amount of money. So he would be one that I would throw on the list. But if you're 35 million, you can do a lot of good things with it. German clubs have always been very good, replacing players, that seemed unreplaceable. You know the German saying, right, Daniel? A graveyard is full of people that can't be replaced. So I don't think it's going to be a big problem for Köln to replace this guy.
In the end, that amount of money is worth more than 1 or 2 seasons more with Modeste, yeah. And since they got promoted again to the first division, to the Bundesliga, they did a good job rebuilding the team and rebuilding their structure and introducing some new players that are young and have some potential. In general, in the last years, they did a good job. Their coach from Austria, Peter Stöger, did a great job. And they will get along with the money and find some solutions, yeah.
Absolutely, I agree.
Daniel, do you think obviously all the money from China threatens the Bundesliga clubs for their stars, that they can come in, throw money at them and take them, especially if they're not the likes of maybe Bayern Munich, the likes of Cologne or Freiburg or Saga, if they have a young star, they may end up getting poached?
I personally don't think at all that China is a threat because the players are gone now. If you make such a deal with Bayern, then you have the money and Bayern has the player. If you make such a deal with China, you have the money and the players out of Europe. And in general, except a few hardcore fans who don't like that amount of money and the business system at all, the majority actually thinks if there's such sums in play, just take the money because it makes sense from an economic point of view. So in general, the money is actually well received in Germany because it helps you. And it's true that the German teams are eager and willing and able to replace good players. And the Bundesliga teams, they have all their youth academies and are prone to introduce new players and give them a chance. So it is not really received as a threat, but more, as a source of extra income.
Yeah, an income it may be for some of these clubs, indeed, Daniel. We're going to move back to you, Chris. Now, just there was a bit of news this week about Lewandowski and Bayern. Bayern issued a bit of a hands-off. What exactly has gone on here? But as far as I knew, he was happy, was he not?
Well, he was reportedly happy, wasn't he? A story came out a little while ago, maybe a week to 10 days ago, that he wasn't actually that happy with Ancelotti come the final game of the season. And he didn't feel he got the sort of support to win the Cannon at the end of the season. I was obviously at Dortmund for the Dortmund Werder game and saw Aubameyang win. And he was over the moon. In fact, he had tears. He was that happy about winning it. So the strikers, that's what it means to them to win that trophy, to be top scorer. And obviously Lewandowski was very disappointed that he didn't get the sort of support he wanted in that final game to be able to get 1 or 2 goals. Because don't forget, he was leading by 1, and then Aubameyang came in and busted 2, got the very late penalty. I think it was about 86 minutes off the top of my head, and that enabled him to win the Cannon. So yes, Lewandowski apparently not happy. But there's been a lot of rumblings in the English press, and this is something we're going to get onto later as well, about maybe Chelsea coming in and doing a little deal to take Lewandowski over to Stamford Bridge. Bayern issued a hands-off warning, didn't they, and said that if anyone approaches Lewandowski illegally, they'll report them to FIFA straight away, no questions asked. And that seems to have calmed the speculation over here in England, nipped it in the bud. Now, obviously, you don't know what's going on in the background with his agencies, etc. But a public courting in the press, which is what happens a lot in England, seems to have dipped out at the moment. I think Bayern would be devastated if they lost him, especially after Alonso and Lahm retiring. We've talked already at great lengths how they're an aging squad. And I think if they were to lose 30 goals a season, they would be in hot water next season.
Might not be a bad thing for the league, though, if he goes.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be, because all of a sudden they've lost 30 goals straight away. They're an aging side, Robben and Ribery. Although Robben was excellent last season, he is getting older. Alonso's gone, Lahm's gone. They're having to bring in new people. Süle and Rudy will take a little bit of a while to adapt from their transfer over from Hoffenheim. And then we've got the likes of Leipzig, obviously, who pushed Bayern all the way until the last month. Dortmund, Hoffenheim. The list is going on now of teams that can maybe challenge Bayern, especially if they're depleted. And if they were to lose Lewandowski, it would be monumental for them.
Yeah, but it's not going to happen.
Oh no, it's not.
We can basically say it's not, because he's under contract until 2022, I think. That's a long time. It's a lot of money. We're talking Chinese proportions here. That
is true.
What is the money that was recently offered for Ronaldo? 150, 200 million? That's the kind of money we're talking about here. Because Bayern is so rich and Lewandowski makes so much money. There is no way in the world that's going to happen.
Yeah, I personally agree. I don't think he's leaving. I also think if you're a player as good as Lewandowski, you don't become that good unless you're really, really competitive. So it's understandable that he wants to win the cannon, and that afterwards he's a bit pissed that he sort of failed to do that. But that doesn't mean, from my point of view, that he actually wants to leave, because he knows that he's the star player there, and he knows what he have with Bayern, that team. And if he goes to another team, unless it's Barcelona or Madrid, it would not be on the same level that Bayern is. So I don't think he's leaving, yeah.
I could see that he's fishing for a salary increase.
That is completely possible, yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if we hear in a little bit that this Bayern have increased the salary. It's a little bit like the Cristiano Ronaldo situation.
Yeah, and I think if Lewandowski ever did go to China, even though we see it very unlikely, it would be like watching a dad taking on his son, wouldn't it? Probably 1,000 goals a season. But we're going to talk about China a little bit further, as they've now come into the one of the leagues, the fourth tier, I believe, in Germany, with their under-20s. Manu, what can you tell us about this? This is a bit of an odd one. I mean, how does this even happen?
That's a good question, Bryce. How did this happen?
Is it money or?
Yeah, absolutely, it's money, and it's actually the federal government being involved in this. The German government, the DFB, signed a development deal with the Chinese Football Association. I believe it was a year ago now. Bundesliga is involved in this as well. Actually, the DFL. Can't get into too much detail there. You guys know why, but I think that this has been the impact of this has been very negative, because a few weeks ago, Pirmasens, which is one of the teams, got relegated. So the Regionalliga in Germany is 5 divisions, I believe, right? Daniel, it's 5.
It is 5, yeah.
Yeah, it's 5. So the problem is that because it's 5 and it's regionalized, there's 3 teams relegated from the 3rd division into the Regionalliga. So sometimes that means that more teams have to get relegated from certain divisions than others, depending on who goes up and who goes down. Because not every team in the Regionalliga gets automatically promoted from the Regionalliga to the 3rd division. You actually have to play a playoff stage with the champions of the other 4 leagues plus the second best team from the Southwest division. So Pirmasens got relegated, and because of that, the Regionalliga would have actually been 9 clubs. Really kind of weird, because they didn't want to have 19, yes. And they asked that the division would be, put up to 20 teams. And the DFB said no. And then literally a week later, they presented this Chinese team as the 20th club in the league to round up the match schedule. And I think, when you see some of the reactions in the German press and from German clubs, Waldhof Mannheim is now saying they're going to refuse playing against this club, against this side. I think it's really, I think there's other ways that China can develop their young players. They could do it in China, for example. They don't need to do it in Germany. And if it's at the expense of a traditional club in Germany, I think that's disgusting.
I think it was interesting to see Oberhausen's Summers come out and say the league turns into a circus so Bayern can sell more jerseys in China.
Yeah, I think that's actually not far from the truth, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. I think also the German league, they want to compete with England. And in England, the TV money, the contract is way higher, mainly because of TV money from abroad.
Yeah, but not because of China. We actually get more television money from China than England does.
Yeah, exactly. And China is a market where you can, grow and get more attention and interest. And that's, the end goal is to get more TV money, to get a bigger contract, mainly because of China. Yeah.
Mm.
So basically, from the German perspective, it's just a bit of a marketing ploy, and from the Chinese, is to develop their players a bit better, give them a bit more experience, right?
Yeah, right. It is sort of a win-win situation if you just look at these two aspects. But of course, when there's one team going down as the sixth last team, and then you have, because it's an uneven number, 19, one team has off every 2 weeks, they don't play, and they use this time spot to play friendly against the Chinese under 20. And the Pirmasens, the team that got relegated as the sixth last team, are understandably pissed.
And there's a lot going on with the Regionalliga as it is, because the teams that are playing there, including my side now, well, don't talk too much about that, but they're all really upset because the big problem with this league is that if you're the champion of that league, you don't automatically get promoted. I mean, Daniel, you guys were down there for 3 or 4 years, right?
For 3 years, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you got stuck there for 3 years because you not only do you have to win your division, but you then also have to win a playoff.
Yeah, okay, to be honest, the first 2 years was with the old system when the champion got promoted automatically, but we weren't the champion. We ended up as, I'm not sure, I think third and second, yeah. And then in the third year, with the new system, with the 5 Regionalligas, the champion had to go to a promotion playoff, and we had that, and we won. In the away game after extra time was pretty close.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, you're playing 34 games, you finish your league, you win it, and then you have to play a playoff. And I remember a few years ago, 1862nd team was in that situation where they won their league, and they won their league by 21 points. And then they were actually winning their game, and they conceded in the very last minute, which means the score, it was 0-0 away, and they were winning at home 1-0, and then they conceded in the very last minute, which meant it was a 1-1 draw, and then they lost on away goals, and the entire season went down the drain. And I think that is something, that's already a big problem. And then you're throwing this at them on top of that, all teams down there want a reform as it is. And then the DFB comes along and throws this running gag at them. I think it's something that's basically, you're throwing a spark into an already something that's just waiting to explode. And I think that's why you're getting such a backlash.
Yeah, exactly. The system also led to the effect that the Regionalliga Southwest had 19 teams because they have automatically 4 teams from lower leagues get promoted in this 4th tier.
Yeah.
And then the first and the second team, they didn't won the promotion playoff, but from the 3rd division, 2 teams went down. So they had 6 extra teams going to the league, 2 from above, 4 from below, but they just had 5 teams who got relegated, and that led to the effect that they had 19 teams.
Wow, well, it's going to be a very interesting year just to tune in and just see how exactly that Chinese side get on and to see if this is a one-off or whether it's a regular occurrence. But Daniel, we're going to talk about your side a little bit more now. There's plenty to talk about. Obviously, the year you just had, obviously the issues a lot of people have with your club, and obviously with Chris and I's club, Liverpool being linked to just about everyone in the Bundesliga, but especially your players. But let's start off, Daniel, just fill us in, just how great was last season? I mean, you guys finished second. We were there to see it. A hell of a game against Bayern, but I mean, it was a fantastic season, and you guys, well, for a large part of it, were a title contender. Surely you didn't see that coming.
No, definitely not. I can say from when the season started, we were a bit nervous. How are we doing? Because in the defense, we didn't change much. And in the second division, we had the best defense with I think the fewest shots in our goal. And also we conceded the fewest goals. And then you go one league higher and there are other teams with better players. And how do we do? And we knew that we had a very good team who could compete on that level, but we were hoping that we end on a safe place away from relegation places. If things go well, we end in the upper half. And if things go very, very well, we might secure a place for the Europe League or for Europe League playoff. But there was no way in hell anyone expected that we go second or third place and secure a place in the Champions League group phase. No one did expect that, really.
No, I don't think anyone did, and none of us did. But I'm sure you were pleasantly surprised. And I mean, obviously you have the Champions League next year. You must be so excited about this. How do you think you guys will get on?
That is a really good question. Well, the point is, since we never played an international competition before, we have a very low. How do you say? There's a ranking with points. There's a UEFA ranking.
Coefficient.
We have a very low club coefficient, which means we will end up in pot 4 when it comes to the drawing. So we will have 2 very, very good teams in our group, possibly like Chelsea and Barcelona. That's a realistic scenario. And I think we will do well, but we are not favored to reach the next round, the round of last 16. It is possible, but I think that it is not likely. So we are very excited, but we hope that we sell ourselves well there and have some good performances and maybe end up on a second place and hopefully on a third, which means you go on then in the Europe League.
Yeah, I must say I've said a few times I think you guys will get on very well in the Champions League and will become a lot of spectators, fans as second teams in there. You play some fantastic football, and why not get through the group, eh? But we're going to talk a little bit about a British player that went over to your site, Chris. We obviously talked. Very much so about Oliver Burke when he went over there, saying about how it was such a great move, and it's always great to see a young Brit move abroad. But it looks like he might be getting a loan back to England. Is that right, Chris?
Well, reportedly, he's homesick, which drives me mad because he gets paid very, very well for what he does. He's got a great life, and he's in a Champions League group stage squad. So to be homesick and want to come back to the UK, and specifically I know he's Scottish, but he wants to come back to England and plays football. And you've got the likes of Brighton, who've just been promoted, Bournemouth. So those sort of level of clubs he wants to come back to. Whilst he may get a start, he's going to be playing in a rapidly reduced setup, and I fear for him. That if he comes on a loan move back to England for a year, by the time he goes back to Leipzig, they'll have moved on. And they'll have been playing in the Champions League for a season, or Champions League / Europa League, or however they end in that group stage. They're also going to be looking to push on again for a Bundesliga challenge and probably look to do as well as they can in a Pokal. So he's going to miss out on all that, and he's going to come back to the party late. And they may have just moved on. I think it's a real bad move for him. And I know he's only a young lad, and he's in a foreign city with a foreign language, and he's got a lot to do and he's got a lot to learn. But he gets paid very well. And there's people who would pay a lot of money themselves to play football professionally. And it always gets me a little bit when players say, "Oh, I'm homesick and I want to come back." I think it's weak. And if I'm going to be honest, I think it's weak.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for him, and he should be really knuckling down and trying to make the most of it. I mean, RB Leipzig seem to have a hell of a setup there. Daniel, how is Oliver Burke seen over in Leipzig? Do people see much of a future there for him, or see him as much of a prospect, or not nearly as much as the people of Britain and Scotland?
All right, he is quite popular in Leipzig because he's a nice, easygoing guy. And when he came here, he started immediately to learn German, and he acknowledged in interviews often that he has a lot to learn. So although he's not playing much, he is one of the more popular players. Now, if we come to the part that's important, the performance on the field, he has some problems. I mean, he's a very quick player and very strong player, but that alone doesn't cut it. It's not enough if you want to play on that level in the Bundesliga. And he lacks some abilities in passing and dribbling. Often enough, he's just trying to playing the ball a couple of meters in front of him and try to run past the defender. And I assume that in the youth teams and in the second English division in the championship, that worked for him, but that doesn't work anymore.
It works in the Premier League too.
All right. Yeah. And the point is, when there was the situation when he arrived here, and in this 1 year, it didn't get better, and that is a problem. You can have problems, you can lack some skills, but it has to get better. So people have some doubts right now, but the general consensus in Leipzig is to give him at least another half a season. We have a lot of games, Champions League and German Cup, and he will get some minutes to play. And if it doesn't work out until the winter break, then there is time to reevaluate the situation. But right now, people don't want him to leave. They still think he can make it and become a better player that plays more on a regular basis.
But I'm actually half serious. If he wants to improve as a player, and we're talking a loan deal, right? He's not going to learn the skills that he needs to play in the Bundesliga. He's not going to learn that in England. And that's
the problem is his physical abilities are already there. That's not it.
Yeah,
it's more the technical and the tactical stuff he needs to learn. And if he goes to a club in the Premier League that is newly promoted, he will play more as a counter striker, and that doesn't really fits into our system, because if you play in our offense, you need to be more than a counter striker.
Yeah, well, I hope for his sake he stays a little bit longer. I mean, surely this would be one of the few opportunities he would actually have to actually have some Champions League football, especially at a young age. But we'll see what happens with the coming months. Another player that has been linked to RB Leipzig, but obviously coming in rather than leaving, would be Yann Caramo. It seems to be a French right-sided striker. Daniel, do you know much about him?
No, I just heard about him in the last 2 days on social media, on Twitter. I never heard of him before, and I don't know him, and I can't say anything about him. But that's the typical thing that Rangnick is doing, buying some very young, very unknown player in France.
Yeah, it seems to be that in the French league that he was involved 35 games and then scored 5 and set up 4. So he does seem to be a bit of a talent. If he's involved 9 goals in 35 games, I mean, surely there must be some type of talent there. And yeah, RB Leipzig seem to enjoy bringing young players through and developing them, as you said.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, but do you feel that this type of player is not going to be enough when they go into the Champions League? Do you feel that they're going to need more experience or players that are already developed, because they're going to be playing at the highest level?
I actually think this works with this bunch of young players. I personally think that experience is overrated, and Ralf Rangnick is keen to have a bunch of young players in the squad who haven't proved that much so far in their career. But eventually some of these young players will develop in a high pace and reach a top level. And if you buy experienced players, let's say you pay 30 millions, then you also gain player material worth of 30 millions. But with the young players, some will make it and they will be worth far more. And for example, there was a lot of doubt about our young squad, and young means inexperienced. When we started this season, we had the youngest squad in average and also had a very, very young squad in the starting 11. But in the end, I think experience is not as important as a good organization of your team in the field. And it worked pretty well for us in this season. And I don't think now we suddenly need to buy some 27 or 29-year-old players. It is definitely possible. But I think this way that we go with buying young potential, it works out. It did in the past, and it will work out in the future.
Yeah, I must say it's left things very exciting at the club, and yeah, we hope that they continue to sign young players and develop them in the way they have. They've been sensational to watch. Manu, there's been talk about Emil Forsberg. I mean, he had an outrageous season as well, didn't he? But the talk of him going to AC Milan, what exactly is the situation there? Is he moving away? Is he not? Or what's the situation?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about a couple players, I guess, on this segment. And Emil Forsberg is one of the two players that we're going to talk about who's actually requested a transfer away from Leipzig. Or wait, sorry, let me rephrase that. Who has sort of tried it to force a transfer away from Leipzig. And Leipzig have come down pretty hard and said no. I believe Ralf Rangnick recently said that in the meeting we're not even going to sell him for 170 million euros. So this already puts away every player has a price aspect. I think that Rangnick as a character is a very strong personality who doesn't really care too much about conceptions about money. About how much money the club will earn. And when you consider that who the club is owned by, which is Mateschitz, right? The 16 billion euro worth oligarch, Red Bull oligarch, you have to kind of keep in mind that the club is not really dependent on making that kind of money. I mean, yes, there's financial fair play, but and Daniel, you'll probably back this up in a moment. Red Bull is not the only sponsor at the club anymore. And Leipzig is a city that's booming quite significantly in Germany. And I mean, when I grew up, my dad does a lot of construction projects all over the country. And back then they built the new BMW factory, the new Porsche factory. There's a lot of different industry in Leipzig. Leipzig is one of the up and coming cities in Germany right now. Money is there and is available, and sponsorship is there and is available. And the other thing that I always say is that Leipzig is not a club that's necessarily forced to sell players because of the financial backing that they have. It's not an ordinary club. And I think, when Mateschitz says in an interview, we're not going to sell any of our top players, that's not, in the English press, you often then hear like, oh, he's just saying that because he wants to get more money out of it. But that's not how he operates. I mean, he took on Coca-Cola and Pepsi when he established Red Bull as a brand, and he won. He beat both those companies. He has a more hip company. He made billions of euros and is still making billions of euros. And when you look at all the sports that he's invested in, the sports are not there to make money for him, but they're there as marketing vehicles to make people buy his brand. And that's really, I think, what people forget. And he doesn't want these brands to be associated with a product that's not successful. And selling your best players is a product that's not successful. So I think that's something that people have to keep in mind. And Forsberg is under contract until 2021, right, Daniel?
22. He extended his contract last February in this year.
So he can basically, Leipzig can say, like, you can complain all you want. You signed this piece of document. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Oliver Minzlaff already said to the agent via an interview in a more cynical way, well, if he needs some infos, I can send him a copy of the contract.
And I think that's something Leipzig is not a normal club. And I mean, you can see that critically, you can say that positively, but they don't need to sell. I think that is something that people don't understand.
Yeah, but also I have to admit, in Leipzig, people are expecting to leave Forsberg and Keita after the next season. Because, let's face it, yes, we have quite some money and we are backed up by Red Bull, who are filthy rich and who spend a lot of money in marketing. But there are bigger fish in the sea. And we can compete with... in Germany, we can compete with Dortmund and Leverkusen, who can spend quite some money for themselves. But if a player wants to go and is good enough for a club like Barcelona or Chelsea, then in the end, the player will be leaving. It's a matter of time. As long as we play in the Champions League, we can say, listen, dude, there's no way in hell you're leaving. We're playing Champions League next year. We need every player. But there will be a time when we possibly, I'm not sure, but there will be a time in the near future when we might not qualify for the Champions League. Or in general, there might be a time that a player like Forsberg or Keita is wanted by a club like Barcelona, and then the player is gone. That's the truth.
Just as we're recording this, some information just been posted now by Bild, saying that Rangnick would not let him go, Keita, for less than 80 million euros. But Keita would like to stay at Leipzig for another year.
Boom.
Yeah. I just read it on Twitter. 80 million for Keita. Also, there's a rumor. I don't know whether it's true that Keita has a stipulation in his contract that he can leave after the next season for reportedly 45 or 50 million. And if that's true, then if now there's an offer for 80, you basically have to sell him because he's not worth 30 million to stay for 1 year.
That's not an offer for 80 million. Rangnick said it would take 80 million euros for us to even think about it.
That's about right, yeah.
But I
don't
think
offering 80 million, then Rangnick will take the money.
I don't think Liverpool will offer 80 million.
In that region, it has to be 70 something, 75, 80, yeah. If it's less, then Rangnick will say no.
And Chris, you just said that you don't think Liverpool would stump up that type of money. Why is that for anyone listening?
It's a hell of a lot of it's a hell of a lot of money for one player. Don't forget Liverpool are trying desperately still to sign Virgil van Dijk from Southampton. That's going to reportedly cost them somewhere in the region of 65 to 70 million pounds for him to be able to do that. Obviously, they pissed Southampton off by publicly quoting him in the media saying it was done before they'd even submitted a bid. So Southampton made a complaint. Liverpool had to publicly apologise, and it looks like what that public apology has done is just driven another £20 million onto it. So if they're after a centre-back, which is a priority, it is a priority for Liverpool to get a centre-back. You're looking there at £60 million. If you want to also then go and try and do business and get Naby Keita for 80 million euros, so that's 70 million pounds. You know, you're already into 130 million that was going to be spent on that. They've just signed Mohamed Salah for 35 million. So, or if you look in the Italian press, it's 42 million euros.
It's 45 actually. I talked to someone from Roma today.
45 million onto that.
Plus bonuses.
Yeah, and then you're going to look at, obviously some money's going to be coming in, so you're going to be looking at Sacco would be sold for probably around about 25-30 million pounds if he's going to go in the Premier League. That's what they'll look for. Albert Moreno is going to they're looking for 15 million euros for that. And
good luck with that.
Yeah, Markovic, somewhere in the region of 10 to 15 million pounds. So it's going to be a massive outlay. I've said for a while, and you'll know, Bryce, that I've done quite a bit of stuff on Naby Keita's Liverpool. I've done Red Men TV stuff. I've done stuff for This Is Anfield. Everything that I've spoken to Leipzig about, and when we were over in Leipzig, Manu and I chatted to a few people. They are not they've said they will not sell anyone in their main starting 11 because they want to. It would be negligent with the actual words that Miroslav used. It would be negligent to sell any of our starting 11 now we're in the Champions League. Once UEFA said, yeah, you straight in, no problems, as we all expected there would be, because Red Bull are a massive company, and a lot of people were thinking maybe they wouldn't get into the Champions League. They're not dealing with a 2-bit operation. They're a massive company. So it was evident that they would get everything in order and that they would be allowed into the Champions League. It would not make me doubt them. It would be very strange, because all the vibes that I've certainly had when I spoke to anyone in that area, in the club as well, but you make little phone calls and messages, etc., is that they won't sell. To turn around and say, actually, okay, we'll sell now, I think that sort of it opens the door for all and sundry to come in and start bidding for your best players before the 1st of September. It would be a great move for Liverpool if they captured Naby Keita. I think it would be terrible for Leipzig if they were to let him go now, and maybe not just hold him for the season. I don't think Liverpool will offer 80 million euros for him, though.
Yeah, it is quite some money, but if you take a look at Saga, I mean, the club basically says we don't want him anymore, but please pay 30 million for him. So 80 million for Keita is a lot of money, but it's not really over the top. It is possible that some club is willing to pay that money if they think we need this type of player for our starting 11. I don't say it will happen, but I think it is possible.
Yeah, but Liverpool don't have that money. Their revenue last year was 150 million pounds. We're talking financial fair play. They just paid 45 million plus bonuses for Salah. The argument that I've gotten a lot of abuse lately from Liverpool fans because I speak my mind and I say things that make sense. And I've gotten one argument saying RB Leipzig don't have the revenue to hang on to Keita. But Liverpool don't have the revenue to pay 80 million euros and still find all the other transfer targets. Because they're under financial fair play, just as Leipzig are, because they're playing in the Champions League next year.
Yeah, that's true.
If they're spending 80 million euros, which these days is 75 million pounds, if I'm not mistaken, right? That's not going to leave them room. That's already 120 million spent on essentially two players. That's 30 million below their revenue. They can't afford it. It's simply not realistic.
Yeah, I'm not saying that he might end up at Liverpool, but maybe Barcelona decides we need him, and then it is possible.
Yeah, but I think that's next season.
Yeah, I think that is more realistic. True.
And you know what? Next season, I think it's not going to be Barcelona. He's going to go to Bayern.
That is possible too. Yeah.
But just quickly, Daniel, is there any talk in Germany of these moves happening abroad? Obviously, Chris and I full well know, and Manu, I'm sure too, would know that Klopp's linked to every Bundesliga player going. Is there any talk of it happening in Germany?
There is, but right now it's more Forsberg, or to be more specific, his agent is a lot in the yellow press. But Keita, not so much, because he's more of the quiet guy, and he already said he might leave the club for a bigger club if he's good enough. So he was honest when he came here. But about Forsberg, people are a bit pissed because, like I said, he extended his contract in February, which is a couple of months ago and not some years. But besides that, there are no rumors about selling any other player. There are a few rumors about some new young players, but nothing specific and not really that much. It's sort of quiet on the rumor front.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next few months. But as we've been saying all along, we probably won't see Keita move to Liverpool. Sorry, Liverpool fans. But that includes Chris and I as well. So anyway, what's being released in the next few days for us all to get excited about, and I hope it means that we'll be able to book a fall trip back to Germany to do a podcast, is the fixture list. Chris, talking about the fixture list, obviously Stuttgart and Hanover have been newly promoted. Is there anyone you think that they would like to avoid on match day one? I get the impression that, that they're going to be an upward trajectory, aren't they? Full of confidence, and they're probably going to want a home game, and they'll take on anyone, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't know. We can ask Daniel in a minute. Kind of newly promoted side last year. What if it was me? I would be wanting to avoid any of the top 5 from last season. I didn't want to start at home against someone like Augsburg. That's who I'd want to start home against, or even Hamburg or Mainz.
No, actually not. Before the season, we were actually a bit happy that we had Dortmund in the beginning. Because in this particular case, they are a very good team, the second best in Germany, yeah. But they had to sell 3 main players with Mkhitaryan and Hummels and Gündogan. And they had to buy some new players who mostly developed well. But in the beginning of the seasons, they had some problems. And on the second game day, we played at home against Dortmund and we won 1-0. And it was not a lucky win. It was the game was even. Could have gone either ways, but the result was okay. It wasn't not a lucky win. And we were quite happy that we had to play against Dortmund on such an early phase in the season. And I think that would be good for Hanover and Stuttgart too, because eventually you have to play against any team. And except Bayern, I think to have the good teams in the beginning is a good thing, because they have to sort out things for themselves, like Schalke and Leverkusen. Some players will be leaving, some new players will be coming, and they both have new coaches. It would be okay for them to play against Leverkusen and Schalke in the beginning. I also think as a team who is promoted, you don't have a home game on the first game, on the first match day.
Oh, okay. Manu, what's your view on Stuttgart and Hanover and who they should get in the first fixture?
I think it really doesn't matter. You have to play against all 17 anyways, so you want to get off on a good start, but in the end of the day, I think it really doesn't matter.
Well, that puts that to bed, I suppose.
Well, it's true. I mean, you have to play against all 17 opponents twice. And then you say there's some advantage that you play them in the beginning, there's some advantage that you play them in the end. But, if you play Dortmund in the beginning, Dortmund will want to challenge for the title in the beginning, and they will want to challenge for the title in the end, and they will be wanting to challenge for the title in the middle. So,
if it was me, I'd want to play someone who'd been a little bit shit last season, and that's why I came up with Augsburg.
But that's a derby. That's a derby for Stuttgart, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
truth to be told, it might be an actual advantage to play against Bayern at the very end of the season, because then they might have secured the championship, the title already, and will be busy in the Champions League and possibly the German Cup. That was the case for some years in the past, and then they concentrated, understandably, on the Champions League, and they sort of sucked in the Bundesliga matches. For example, I think they lost one match to Augsburg, and there were several other games when they didn't play well after they secured the title. So it is a real advantage to play against Bayern at the very end of the season, but just when they have secured the title and are busy in the Champions League.
Yeah, most certainly. Well, we're going to wrap it up there, guys. I'm just going to put one yes or no question to Daniel. Only yes or no, and I want you to explain it. Will RB Leipzig win the league next year?
No.
Oh, well, I was hoping you'd say yes. But anyway, Daniel, it's been fantastic having you on. We really appreciate it. We've covered an awful lot of topics today. Where can people find any of your writings or any other information? Or are you on social media at all? Or where will your articles be published?
I write some stuff on Twitter under dub54. And my articles that I write, that they are published on the homepage or on the fan-made homepage, rb-fans.de. But I'm not the only writer. We have several people who write stuff. And if I write some articles about RB Leipzig, about statistics and tactics and so on, it will be published there.
Fantastic. Well, once again, thank you very much for coming on, and we'll hopefully have you on again in the future, or meet up with you for over in Germany, maybe.
Sure. Just give me a heads up.
That'd be
possible. Yeah. Thank you a lot for inviting me and giving me a chance to talk here about several stuff. It was pretty nice.
Not at all, Daniel. It won't be the last time we have you on either. But Manu, where can people find your stuff? You've got a lot going on. What's coming up with the Confederations Cup this week while you're over in Germany?
Well, the semi-final previews are going to come on Football Grad. I'm working on a big story involving a couple transfers right now. So I can't really give away too much. It's no one going to Liverpool. No one is going to Liverpool. I'm sorry. But, there's a German club involved, so I can't reveal too much, but it's a pretty good story. So I'm working on that. It's a Russian club involved, so that's why I'm on it. But that's going to come in the next few days. And other than that, Confederations Cup. And I'm doing quite a lot of video work for OneFootball. So if you understand German, I am doing all their video previews for the German national teams.
Fantastic. Busy as ever. And Chris, what have you got going on this week, or what would you like to plug?
Just teetering on with previews. Thankfully, Germany have got through to the semi-final, so I'll do the preview for the Mexico game, which will be on Fußballstat. And then I'm a little bit reactionary at the moment, Bryce. I'm just enjoying the summer.
And why not, eh? You deserve it. I suppose all I've got to plug is that we missed out on a Golats podcast last week while I was enjoying my trip to Ireland. But it will resume again this week. We'll have plenty of topics, as always, to talk about, Manu and I. You can find me on Twitter at Bryce Dunn 11. I'm sure we'll have plenty coming up in the next few weeks, transfer news and other information on the Football Grad Network. But until then, auf Wiedersehen.
Ich warte seit Wochen auf diesen Tag und tanz vor Freude über den Asphalt, als wär's ein Rhythmus, als gäb's ein Lied, das mich immer weiter durch die Straßen zieht. Komm dir entgegen, dich abzuholen.
We can get anything delivered, from furniture to toilet paper. And now, adult beverages with Drizzly. Drizzly lets you compare prices from local liquor stores on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits, then get them delivered right to your door in under 60 minutes. And right now, Drizzly's giving all new customers $5 off their first order. Just enter promo code EASY5 at checkout. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com.
It wouldn't be the holiday season if there wasn't candy, right? Celebrate the holiday season with the Holiday Crush. They've sprinkled candy with a holiday theme and fun-packed challenges every week for 5 whole weeks, finishing on January 4th. The more challenges you complete, the better your chances of unwrapping delicious rewards. So, are you ready to crush the holidays? Play the Holiday Crush now. Download it from the App Store, Google Play, or Windows Store for free. Terms and conditions apply.
Thank you for listening to Believe. You can show support to your host by subscribing to the show and giving us a 5-star rating on your preferred platform. Check us out at Believe.com and search for BLEAV on YouTube.